Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast, the lowdown on Delano Burgzorg. On Friday, Middlesbrough announced the sign of the centre forward from Mainz on a rumoured fee of 2.5 million on a 4-year contract. So a bit some background info: 25-year-old, 6'1", born in Amsterdam, but eligible to play for the same national team as Anthony Dijksteel. He's also played most of his career on the left wing, and also last season he did play for Huddersfield, scoring 7 goals with 2 assists, and he was described by Michael Carrick as he signed, who is a threat and will be a real asset because he has different types of attributes to what we already have. But anyway, let's get a Huddersfield perspective now, and we spoke to Huddersfield fan Brady on Boro's new recruit.
Delano Burgzorg, I cannot believe this move's happened. Yeah, he's a real interesting one. I think he certainly had something in the team that not a lot of our other players in the squad had. He can score goals out of nowhere, really. I mean, he is a very interesting character. The best moment for me, really, was when he was kind of new to the club. This was still kind of under Neil, and we just had Darren Moore. He scored a goal against Ipswich. It was a pretty good goal. And I've genuinely never seen a player so giddy in my life to score a goal. Next time he got the ball, he stood on the ball with both feet. He was doing step overs and all sorts. Yeah, he's. I suppose the positives, really, because there is some negatives, unfortunately, but the positives are he can score the type of goals that you just wouldn't expect, really. There's a goal, I assure you, if listeners want to look up, there's a goal he scored against Sunderland where it's kind of on the volley and hits it through a player's legs. He'll kind of take chances, and he is quite quick and he's quite direct. He gets into a lot of positions and he's quite physical, which is really good. Quite tall player, again, not to get all meat and two drink championship, but yeah, obviously that is very handy in what is quite a physical, intense league. He's a good player. The downside is he really didn't end well for him at Huddersfield. So we've had a few managers, obviously a disastrous season, and but our third manager of the season, Andre Breitenreiter, he left him out of the squad. And the reason for that was Andre Breitenreiter said there was a few bad eggs in the team and he would be dropping them for the next game. And the 2 players that were dropped in the next game, having started most of them throughout the season, were Delano Burgzorg and Sorba Thomas. So, again, is this a manager trying to save face? Who knows what's going to kind of gone on there? But there is that. He's pictured, I think fans were giving him and the team stick after a defeat. I forget which away defeat it was. And Delano Burgzorg went over to the fans and kind of got into it with some of them giving it back, which is, you know, people kind of feel how they want to feel about that. But for me, I think if you're a fan having a go at a player, don't be surprised if they give it you back, because I'm not sure I'd like that if that was me. But yeah, so, you know, there are those kind of rumours around. I think on the pitch, this is the thing that kind of really did for him, but he's quite a selfish player. The frustrations, and let's be honest, there was a lot last season because we're in the 3rd tier of English football now. He had so many opportunities to do a simple tap in or square it, you know, to someone to pass into it, to score into an open net, and he didn't. He took a shot on that was really, you know, not on, or like I say, someone's got an open net if he just passes it 5 yards, and he was quite selfish. So very, very frustrating player. But also I think it's equally more frustrating because you know how good he can be, and he can do those moments no one else can. So I'm really intrigued. I mean, a 4-year deal's, you know, they clearly saw enough in him to give him that. And obviously you've got Carrick, and he's a really good manager in my opinion. And, you know, Middlesbrough are a much more stable team than Huddersfield. You know, we had a new ownership. It's been a bit of a mess, really. And that's why we're in the 3rd tier of English football. So, yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how he gets on, because I do think there's a player there. But, yeah, as I say, there's been a few things recently where, you know, I really liked him, but he has not covered himself in glory, particularly towards the end of his tenure with Huddersfield as we were getting relegated. So really interested to see how he gets on. But yeah, hope I haven't dampened spirits. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be good for you guys.
So thanks for that, Brady. So Dana, let's get some more Huddersfield fans' perspective. Of course, it was a mixed review from Brady there, but is there any more insight? What else have the Huddersfield fans been saying?
Yeah, that mixed review is a bit of a theme amongst Huddersfield fans. We browse in the forums, and we did ask Huddersfield fans on Twitter as well. One of them says that Burgzorg, when he doesn't have too much time to think about it, is a deadly finisher. He's strong, can hold it up well, isn't particularly effective off the ball, but does make an effort in his own ways. Thinks he's a much better dribbler than he actually is, although I think he will score at least one mazy running wonder goal this season. Another one on the Huddersfield fan forum says that Delano is a player that will delight and frustrate in equal measure. Probably plays more for himself than for his team, the sort of player I don't usually like. And yet, I like him. He can create something from nothing. Ideally, he's a wild card, someone who would thrive in a side with better structure around him. And then one Twitter user, Clark Eastwood, said to us, lots of technical ability, can be great to watch, always wants an extra touch or 10. Will make space for a shot and then turn back to beat another man. However, with us, he was surrounded by far inferior technical players, so part of his greed could be linked to that.
Oh, so mixed reviews then from Huddersfield fans. But look, I think we take these with a pinch of salt, of course. It was a really poor season for Huddersfield. Everyone is the worst player in the world when you get relegated, and things don't always work out how we want them to be. I always find it difficult as well, I think, to not just take a different fan's perspective or from a different team, but different systems, different ways of playing, different manager, different environment. There's so many external factors that can go into this, but let's get our thoughts then, Dana, because you've had a look at him as well. He's technically our first new signing because you can't really call Luke Ayling a new signing. But what can you tell us about him?
Yeah, he is a very interesting player as Burgzorg because he is pretty quick off the mark, which I think is something that Boro lack. If you think about the options that Michael Carrick has at his disposal, it's only really Emmanuel Latelath and Isaiah Jones that have that pace one-on-one or to get in behind. Burgzorg frequently looks to dribble around or beyond a defender. He's in the top 7% for take-ons attempted and in the top 6% for take-ons succeeded in the Championship last season. Huddersfield fans on their forums have said that he can create something out of nothing, and I can definitely see that. His unpredictability on the ball may actually be a benefit because he is a threat when one-on-one with a defender. I can definitely see Boro fans getting out their seats when he's on the ball, but then very quickly getting back into them because his game is very rough around the edges. Don't expect a player with particularly effective final ball. I think that's where he maybe falls down. He's physically dominant, which makes him quite effective playing with his back to goal because his strength, coupled with that one-on-one ability, dribbling ability, can get him around marking defenders. I think his strength is maybe why he's been played so frequently as a centre forward. 22 out of his 27 appearances for Huddersfield last season came in that position. His hold-up play is all right, but his technical inconsistency is what lets him down. Quite often his first touch is off or one of his following touches is quite heavy. Same with his dribbling, actually. He is what I like to call an insecure dribbler. He doesn't quite have that magnetism with the ball, which means defenders can step onto him if the ball gets away from him slightly, if he takes a heavy touch, for example. And as I said earlier, his final ball and decision-making needs a lot of work. He is very greedy. I think if you were to ask any Huddersfield fan, that is probably one of the words, one of the descriptors that would come up quite frequently with him. And he's probably someone that would massively piss you off playing with because he just ignores your existence for the majority of the game. So Carrick and Cole, they'll need to refine that rawness, turn his flaws into effective attributes. But there is a big question around, will he fare better at Boro in a better tactical and technical team than Huddersfield? You would like to think so, but there is work to do with Delano Burgzorg.
Yeah, and I would echo that as well. And I think if I was to give my review on it as well, the thoughts on the deal, I think 2.5 million, the reported fee, of course, we don't know the full price yet, but you get him at a 25-year-old on a 4-year deal. So you're going to enter his peak years as a player. And it would also end in his peak year as well, really, at 29 going into 30. So you're going to probably get the best price from him if he does well. But in terms of play, I would echo what you were saying there, Dan. I think for me, when I've watched him and the analysis that we've done, I think he is a player that less is more with him. I think he needs to really simplify his game. And I think, and really focus on getting into better areas on the pitch. And he's got all the right attributes there. I think as a central forward, I think he's got really good pace, good ball progression when he gets going. He's unpredictable. I think really good shot placement as well. But I don't like him as a holding forward. I think he is definitely someone where in build-up, I would want him to very similar to Latif really in terms of profile-wise, and where I don't want Latif to be so much in the build-up. I want him to find his really good runs. I want him to get him behind. I want him to use his unpredictability. I want him to use his pace, and I can see why we would bring this type of player in. On the eye test, I think he's a bit of a nuisance. He does remind me of Latif a little bit. And also last year when Latif went off, we didn't have the alternative striker to do it. We put Josh Coburn on because Force was mainly injured, and it pretty much the game got away with us. And that's no disrespect to Josh, but we just needed someone with a bit more pace, a bit more unpredictability to get in behind, and also to try and get a chance from nothing. So really, it does give us another layer of attacking threat. But I think to get the best out of him, and this is where Huddersfield fell down a lot last year, and this is why I think he's a little bit greedy into some aspects, or why he was called greedy, because it's twofold, really. I think it's the players around you, so the players around you creating chances, but also his poor decision-making at points. And that can always be refined, it's all coachable things. It's something that you can adapt in your game, but it's not necessarily a bad thing being greedy or wanting the ball more. If you can do something with it, then it's brilliant. But I would love to see him with Azaz, McGree, Balassa, Hackney, and soon to be Morris, of course. That lowdown could be coming very soon. But someone who can stretch defenders and give really good movement. You get the best out of those players if you've got that player in behind as well. I do want less from him. I think that needs a bit more guidance. He is raw. You can definitely see that. I can understand the frustrations from a Huddersfield perspective, but I think overall there is enough there to, one, excite people, but two, to be a really contributing part of us going forward and to create more chances. So there is more to the eye, I think, that Huddersfield fans have seen. And that's probably the reason why I'm kind of like, I want to discard a little bit of the thoughts, because of just the system was all different. The chance creation at Huddersfield last year was really poor. It was based on individuals. We've seen Neil Warnock's side as well at the start. He's never had a 20-goal a season striker ever in his managerial career. So for me, it's like, if strikers never do fully well into that system, they always have to create a lot or nothing. Remember when Britt was like that? Remember when we had him like a season goal scorer, still scoring goals under Warnock, but he got nothing to him. So he had to create stuff himself, which is probably the reason why people probably say he's greedy. But I think overall, I'm intrigued by it, because we've definitely seen more to the eye than what people have seen previously in the Championship. But where do you think he's going to be, Dan? Do you think he's going to be like in the 11, or do you think he's going to be a rotation player? What do you think?
I think he's going to be a rotation player. Dom Shaw of the Northern Echo was talking about this to people on Twitter, because I think it was maybe propped up that Boro are looking for a versatile forward and then a high-quality striker. And I think Dom said that Burgzorg is probably that versatile forward. I mean, it is interesting, isn't it? Because if I look at his, where he's been played in his career, 80 times he's been played as a left winger, and then 64 times he's been played as a centre forward. So he's got that versatility there. I mean, for me, you're looking at that left wing position as a position that Boro need to strengthen. So I just wonder if he, come the end of the season, I reckon he might have played most of his appearances for Boro in that left-hand side, obviously high up the pitch. So it's a different option to Riley McGree, but Riley McGree does have that position nailed down should he stay at Boro, because I do think it needs to be mentioned that Riley McGree does have 1 year left on his deal and hasn't signed a new one as of yet. So there's no guarantees that he'll actually stay at Boro in this window. But with Burgzorg, he's that direct threat, and he's somebody that I think can take the ball in behind when measured up one-on-one with a defender, which is something that we haven't really seen at Boro since Isaiah Jones under Chris Wilder, where he was one-on-one with a defender and that was no problem to him, because he had that Soccer AM skill school style approach to his game where he would get past the defender, no problem. We haven't really seen that so much with Jones over the seasons. So with Burgzorg, he really likes to do that. It's probably to his detriment, though, and to the team's detriment, because as you were discussing, as Huddersfield fans have mentioned, it's that greediness. But the greediness comes down to his final ball, because if he's final ball's better, then it's no problem, is it? It's only because his final ball is poor that he's called that. So I think he will be a rotation option, but in the cameos that he does have at Boro, you're always hoping that these players that are maybe not starters but finishers in the eyes of, for example, Gareth Southgate, can make an impact. But yeah, he's a very interesting player. It's a step up for him. It's a 4-year contract. Huddersfield fans can't believe that he's made this move. They think that he's got the best agent in the world. So I think come the end of the season, or come, like, say for example we talk about Burgzorg in 2 years' time or whatever, where we're kind of laughing almost at those Huddersfield fan comments, because Burgzorg has shown why Kieran Scott has brought him in. But right now, I think he will probably end up being that sort of rotation option for us.
Yeah, and look, when you watch Huddersfield as well, like when he was put up front, there's a number of clips where he is obviously he's going to be the furthest forward, but the gap between the midfield and the forward is so big that he's having to be more greedy, or the final ball's not there because he has to hold it for a longer period of time. So there's a lot of context needed. But I think this signing, it'll open up Boro to potentially, I think, maybe look at different system changes, like give us a bit more flexibility. Obviously last year when we changed to a back three at times in the set formation, really. But like going forward, can we maybe play over two up front? Can we maybe give ourselves an option down to keep an inverted winger properly, rather than someone who likes to float between the lines? You can stretch someone out on the byline and really stretch teams to try and get themselves in. So you've got one inverted, one person on the wing. So you could potentially see that. But I don't know what you think, but I don't really see Middlesbrough changing to two up front. I definitely see it more as he's probably going to be a winger, or he'll play as second fiddle to Emmanuel Latte-Lath, which again is not a bad thing, because there's going to be a time where Latte-Lath falls off at some point. The level he was competing at, or gets injured, yeah. Like there's so many different contributing factors to that, right? So we're going to have to rely on him at some point. So I'm intrigued to see how we utilize him in that aspect. But I don't know about you, but I can't really see him Boro changing system for this signing. Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't think we will from a start anyway. But I think one thing that we know of Michael Carrick's forwards and the way that he kind of approaches or sets up his team is that it's very fluid and it's very flexible. I think at times last season, particularly at the beginning, it was probably too fluid. We were playing Sammy Silvera up front. We were playing Morgan Rogers up front. There was a point where Sam Greenwood played up there. And to be fair, I thought in the Sunday game, Sam Greenwood fared pretty decently. But the big thing with the recruitment under Michael Carrick and Kieran Scott is that these players have to be versatile. So if Boro do need to change it during the game, then Burgzorg could be that striker that allows Latte-Lath to make those runs in behind. Because one thing that I've noticed from Burgzorg, despite his technical inconsistency, is what I called it earlier, he is strong. And that's something that has been acknowledged by Huddersfield fans, that he's strong. He's got that upper body strength. He can pin a centre half. That's why he's being played as a centre forward. You can see that. So that could be used to Boro's benefit, because we haven't had that hold up striker really. Like Coburn, I guess in terms of his profile and his stature, could be that, but I don't really look at Coburn and think that he's necessarily strong, to be honest. I mean, he's definitely bulked out over the years, but with Burgzorg, I think you can see it straight away that he can be somebody that takes in that possession and keeps the ball for a little bit to allow players to journey up the pitch and maybe make those runs either side. So, yeah, I don't think Boro will change the system, but if he's played, maybe Boro can change their approach slightly and just have that focal point, which may end up being a good foil for Latte-Lath. I know it's a very simplistic point of view, like have a fairly physically imposing striker and then a quick striker as well working together, but it could be something that we see. But I do think that the majority of his minutes will be played on the left wing.
Yeah, and I think just on the final point before we move on around like ranking the players and the ranking the signing, sorry, is just around like that Latte Laugh likes to come in deep, where he likes to come and be connected to the midfield. And at times last season, when he did do that, we never had someone who was able to run in behind or get into that similar position that he was in to really like put the defense or give them an issue. And when the striker does come out, it creates a lot of space in behind, and we never had someone to run in behind afterwards. So that could potentially be the option that we've seen. A team that does that really well. Real Madrid, who just won the Champions League, when the centre forward comes in, there's Jude Bellingham that always finds a space in behind, and it always works really well, especially with the profile that they've got. But I'm not saying that Boro Real Madrid by any means. But I think with the signing now, Dana, one final point, I guess, means that probably Coburn, Matthew Hoppe, reckon they're going to probably depart in the summer. One probably loan, one probably permanent.
Well, definitely Matthew Hoppe. I often forget that he exists, to be honest. With Coburn, it is an interesting one because I've always maintained the opinion that Coburn should be loaned out, and that's no different this season. So, especially if what Dom Shaw reported is true and Boro are looking for a high-quality striker, does Coburn want to play that kind of third rotation option? Probably not. So it's probably more beneficial if he goes out on loan. But yeah, Matthew Hoppe, I think the writing's on the wall for him. He's never really been in the mix, has he? So yeah, he'll be gone. Probably go back to America, you would assume.
Yeah, I think so. I think the MLS is a calling for him. I never know, might go to Columbus Crew. Who knows? But one final point then, Dana, as always, the part of the show where everyone loves it, and they come back to us and it's haunted many of us. But ranking
Most
a signing,
namely you.
yes, of course. But ranking a signing out of 5. So how would you rank this signing, Delano Burgzorg, out of 5?
Starting off very hot, I'm going to go with a 2. And the reason I've gone with a 2 is because it's that dribbling style. I don't really like that from a player because I think it gives defenders that window to basically steal in, to make that tackle, to win the ball back. He's very erratic. He's very raw. Like, this is a player that could be refined. And I think under Michael Carrick, you've got the right coach there, and Aaron Danks if he stays, and we'll get to, because we always have to mention them as a trio, don't we? We can't get away with just one. They have shown that they can improve players. I think Burgzorg has those attributes: the pace, the strength, the skill, the ability to beat a man one-on-one. He's got that in his locker. It's just his final ball is incredibly wayward at times. But for right now, I'm going to say a 2, maybe a 2.5. I'll go with a 2.5. I think he'll start well. I do. I think he'll start well. I think he will get Boro fans excited, and then he'll tail off. And I feel like that's maybe been the theme of his last few loans, because twice has he had his loan spell at a club turned permanent, once at Hercules in 2020 and then at Mainz in 2022. Both of those teams, of course, sold him. I don't know why. I don't know why exactly, but Huddersfield as well. I think Huddersfield fans said that he started well and he just petered out. But to be fair, their season did. So yeah, mitigating circumstance there. But I'll go with a 2.5. I think, Johnny.
Okay, I was going to go 2.5 as well. Actually, I was going to go middle of the road and see how he progresses across the season and in the seasons as well, because it does take players time, regardless of division or playing or whether. Getting used to a system and style takes time. So I'll give him a 2.5 for now. Excitement wise, I'm really keen to see what Boro do in the window. We've made a really good start bringing in Ayling, contract extensions, and also with his signing as well. And Aidan Morris's, well, we'll probably see next few days when that gets announced. But Dana, for right now, thank you as always for joining me. To listeners and viewers, thank you very much for watching and listening to us as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the Boro Breakdown podcast. We've got a lot of content coming out in the summer. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider. That helps us get found and all that fun stuff. And don't forget to vote for us in the FCAS. We are hoping to come home with the gold this year for Best Football League podcast. So for right now, this has been the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was all of your Delano Burgzorg chatter in a pod. Up the Boro Breakdown.